Understanding Feminine Psychology by Robert A. Johnson is a key to understanding the inner conflicts of the modern woman through the lens of ancient myths and Jungian analysis. Johnson decodes the archetypes of Psyche, Demeter, and Aphrodite, showing how they manifest in career, relationships, and self-realization. If you want to understand your contradictory desires, difficulties with motherhood, or fears of femininity, this book will be a map for a journey toward wholeness. Robert Johnson wrote this book in parallel with He, observing how his female patients suffered from a crisis of feminine identity even more severely than men. The prototype for Psyche was his client, a successful businesswoman who realized that her developed animus, masculine qualities, had suppressed her feminine nature. Curiously, the Russian translation appeared only 30 years after the original, becoming a bestseller among women balancing career and family. The key idea: feminine maturity is not a choice between strength and tenderness, but the art of holding paradoxes. Part 1. Mythological Roots. Chapter 1. The Myth of Cupid and Psyche, the Journey of the Feminine Soul. The story of Psyche reveals the stages of feminine maturation from naive dependence through trials to conscious love. The myth shows how blind trust is replaced by the necessity of one's own efforts, and idealization by the acceptance of relationship complexity. The central moment is when Psyche decides to light the lamp, violating the prohibition, which symbolizes the transition from passivity to active knowledge. The Psyche's lamp technique suggests asking in difficult situations, "What do I truly want to see, even if it is painful?" The 4 trials practice systematically working with 4 mythological tasks: sorting grains, fetching the golden fleece, etc., as metaphors for modern challenges. For example, a woman experiencing infidelity, instead of escaping into work, goes through her own trials, acknowledges her anger, analyzes her partner's selection patterns, and learns to set boundaries. Chapter 2. The Goddess Archetype, Great Mothers and Eternal Maidens. The feminine psyche contains 3 key archetypes: Demeter Mother, Persephone Maiden, and Aphrodite. An imbalance between them creates inner conflicts, overprotectiveness, infantilism, or the sexualization of relationships. Maturity manifests in flexible switching between these aspects. The archetypal landscape method helps determine which image dominates in different areas of life. The dialogue of the goddesses technique, organizing an internal discussion between the archetypes when making decisions. For example, a business lady who ignores the maternal aspect begins to notice fatigue through practice. She realizes the need to show care to herself as well. Chapter 3. The Shadow of Femininity, the Forbidden Sides of the Anima. The shadow in feminine psychology often contains repressed aggression, sexuality, or intellectual ambitions. Society encourages convenient qualities: softness, self-sacrifice, driving others into the shadow. The integration of these aspects allows one to become whole, not convenient. The Meeting the Shadow practice for a week record moments when unfeminine thoughts, desires arise. The ritual expression technique, giving an outlet to the shadow through art, sports, or writing. For example, a housewife who always suppresses anger begins to release it through a punching bag a month later. She notes a decrease in passive aggression in the family. Conclusion for part 1. The first part reveals how ancient myths explain modern feminine dilemmas. The story of Psyche becomes a metaphor for the path from dependence to maturity. The goddess archetypes a language for understanding internal roles, and work with the shadow, a tool for going beyond social expectations. The practices offer not just analysis, but concrete steps, from metaphorically experiencing the myth to dialogue with internal images. An important emphasis: feminine psychology requires not a choice between archetypes, be a mother or a career woman, but the art of timely activation of different aspects. As Psyche's example shows, trials are not a punishment, but necessary lessons for achieving wholeness. Part 2. Psychological Aspects. Chapter 4. Relationship with the animus, the masculine in woman. The animus is the internal masculine image in the female psyche, influencing career ambitions, logical thinking, and partner choices. The unconscious animus manifests through rigidity, hypercontrol, or, conversely, the search for a savior. Balance arises when a woman accepts masculine qualities as tools, not as a substitute for femininity. The dialogue with the animus technique, conducting a written conversation, asking questions: how do you help me? Where do you limit me? The role balance, practice consciously using masculine qualities at work and feminine ones in personal relationships. For example, a female executive suffering from insomnia realizes that her animus does not switch off at home. She introduces a ritual of changing clothes after work as a symbol of changing roles. Chapter 5. Mother and daughter. Rupture and restoration of the connection. The relationship with the mother forms basic trust in the world and acceptance of one's own body. Unhealed conflicts, overprotectiveness, coldness, competition are projected onto other relationships. Healing begins with separation. Are these my mother's problems or mine? The genogram method creates a map of family relationships over 3 generations, noting recurring scenarios. The symbolic completion technique, write a letter to the mother with the words, I take from you, I leave with you. For example, a woman who blamed her mother for her failures realizes that she is repeating her fate through practices. She finds her own path without rejecting her kin. Chapter 6. Sisterhood, female solidarity and rivalry. Historically developed female competition for resources has transformed into modern forms. Comparison on social media, competition at work. True sisterhood is built on mutual support without the dissolution of boundaries. The honest mirror practice in a woman's circle take turns telling each other, I value in you. I envy in you. The circle of trust technique create a space where one can share vulnerability without advice. For example, friends who spent decades discussing only men and children begin to talk about their dreams. Their relationship gains new depth. Conclusion for part 2. The second part explores the key relationships that form feminine identity with the internal masculine principle, the mother and sisters. Work with the animus helps use masculine qualities flexibly without losing feminine essence. Healing the mother wound requires not accusations, but separation, the ability to take what is one's own without carrying what is not. Sisterhood becomes a practice of new femininity, where support does not exclude healthy competition. The principle of conscious choice unites these themes, which patterns to preserve and which to transform. As the example with the animus shows, integration is not a rejection of masculine achievements, but the ability to switch codes in a timely manner. Maternal scenarios can be rewritten, and female solidarity can be rebuilt if comparison is replaced by co-creation. Part 3. Integration. Chapter 7. Mature masculinity, beyond the myth. Maturity in masculine psychology is not a final state, but a process of balancing between opposites: strength and vulnerability, responsibility and freedom, tradition and innovation. The modern world requires flexibility from men, which cannot be found in the rigid archetypes of the past. The dialectical synthesis technique suggests finding third paths between polarities. For example, combining knightly discipline with the sensitivity of an artist. The role experimentation practice allows one to try on different behavioral models in a safe environment to expand the repertoire of reactions. The key principle, masculinity as a palette, not a template. For example, a company leader, accustomed to an authoritarian style, begins to practice flexible leadership, maintaining decisiveness in crises, but learning to delegate and admit mistakes in ordinary work. Chapter 8. Modern challenges. Man in the 21st century. The digital age has created new traps for masculine identity. Virtual hypermasculinity on social media, substituting real achievements with their simulation, and the crisis of traditional social roles. At the same time, unique opportunities have opened up for rethinking masculinity outside rigid frameworks. The digital detox method helps restore connection with real experiences through periodic disconnections from virtual competitiveness. The identity reassembly technique suggests consciously constructing one's masculine role from elements of different cultures and eras. It is important not to reject modernity, but to consciously adapt eternal principles to new conditions. For example, a gamer who spends 8 hours a day in online battles begins to transfer the heroic archetype to reality, signing up for rock climbing and volunteering, finding genuine challenges. Conclusion for part 3. The concluding part of the book shows that genuine integration is not a return to a mythical golden age of masculinity, but a creative adaptation of ancient truths to modernity. The techniques work not to simplify, but to complicate masculine identity, the ability to hold paradoxes, choosing not between, but both, and. The practices offer concrete tools for this, from the conscious use of technology to experiments with new forms of self-realization. The key message: the man of the future is neither a warrior nor a victim of circumstances, but a conscious creator of his destiny, who knows how to extract wisdom from traditions without becoming their captive. This is such a wonderful book. I have compiled a separate list of all the important theses from this book, along with all the techniques and tools, and created a step-by-step action plan that you can immediately implement in your life. You can get all this in my community, Place of Power. There, you will find a detailed text analysis with similar lists for each book being reviewed. The community has already thoroughly analyzed and made available to you hundreds of world bestsellers, with a new analysis released every day. Follow the link in the description and use it.